So what makes someone qualified to review a video game?
Oh, that's so simple. So I think you need to be familiar with the franchise's legacy. You have to know what steps are being taken from each game to the next. You have to have a familiarity with the mechanics, the ideas that they're interested in. It would help if you read some behind the scenes.
A critical error is an error which the OS cannot reasonably ignore. Jake Steinberg is a streamer, writer, and certified yapper. Complimentary. Peter Hunt Szpytek is a YouTuber, journalist, and certified yapper. Derogatory. These are the things they cannot reasonably ignore.
The question is not, can you write a review for a game if you hate the series it comes from, but is instead Jake Steinberg? How can you write a review for a game if you hate the series it comes from? I feel like there was a lot of discussion about that first question this past week following a negative review of The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Jake, I want to throw it to you. We're going to get to that review. We're going to talk about the nuances there and all of that, but I want to throw it to you just at first blush. Like, how does all of this grab you?
Oh my God, reviews, video game reviews are such a funny topic that we are going to keep coming back to on this podcast over and over again. You know, we're so concerned with how we talk about games, and reviews are going to be such a big part of that. And I think when I think about this question that you've laid out, how does somebody, or can somebody, review a game in a franchise that they are not a fan of? What jumps out to me is, I think, this almost quiet, unspoken belief in video games that is so concerned with defending ownership. I think that there is a logic that a lot of video game players have, that something about the medium positions audience members as wanting to be like certified, authoritative fans of a franchise. I understand this in a way that you don't. I've played all of these games, so I have knowledge, I have understanding that you don't. And that rules so much of the way that we talk about games, because I feel like I hear this stuff all the time, where it's somebody being like, oh, you would only understand this if you played the other games.
Yes.
And kind of like what we're talking about today, this, well, if you didn't like the last one, why are you reviewing this one? And I think what this comes down to really is an idea that I've talked about on this podcast before, almost this cultural capital that is accrued by being a stalwart fan of a franchise. You and I see this in our circles a lot, where a game gets announced in a big franchise and you see the people in games media who are like, I need to review this. Someone has to hire me to review this game because I know so much about this franchise. And I think what is happening there is that our preferences become a social currency in the online space. Fans build this cultural capital by showing a deep investment in a video game franchise. And once they have earned that, they want to control who gets to speak about the thing that they love, so that it's represented accurately to their experience.
And it's frustrating too, because like this is like kind of part of this conversation, but it's this thing too where it's like, and if you are not the right kind of fan of a franchise, then your review is null and void, essentially. But what I think is interesting about this conversation is, I feel like the idea of like, well, who can review a game is kind of like old news at this point. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like I think it's
hell yeah, dude.
Like such an easy answer of like literally anyone. Literally anyone. If you've played the game, you are qualified to review it. That said, now there's more to it than that, right? Like, are you going to write a good review or not? That's where it sort of gets to be the sticking point. But like in general, like, do we need fans to review games? The answer is, my answer is like a resounding absolutely not. In fact, I appreciate a diverse set of perspectives when it comes to reviews. And I think it's very silly that games, in terms of like media reviews, games tend to be, I think, one of the only things that has like, it must be reviewed by fans, and every single game is going to be reviewed really well. You know what I mean? Where like, I don't see this in movies or in like music.
I think so much of it comes down to this completely misaligned perspective of what a review is.
Yeah.
Because if you think a review is supposed to be this like most accurate taking of account of what the product is, then of course you are going to want the person who is most aware of all of the kind of things that a fan would be interested in, the intricacies. It's almost like having somebody review a Pokemon game who's like a super Pokemon fan versus having somebody who's just like a normal video game player, because there is stuff that they're not even paying attention to because the game doesn't call attention to it. But because you know about the history of the franchise, you know that this little change might actually be a really big deal. So it's the context of, I think, what we want out of a review. And I think the key thing that a lot of people are simply missing in this conversation is that almost like a clean definition of what criticism is and what the point of criticism is. And almost I would love to ask people to define like what a video game review is and what the purpose of it is. Because do you ever come across super famous Bell Hooks, the writer?
I'm familiar with Bell Hooks.
A lot of like good pedagogy came out of Bell Hooks. And there's this idea that they had called she had called Talking Back, and I think it was maybe the name of one of her books. And the kind of central idea there is it's about speaking to a voice of authority on equal footing. And I think that is really connected to what we're talking about today. And I think one of the main takeaways from that theory is this idea that voices from the margins challenge the center and expand our purview of what we see. And in a lot of video games right now, I think that the critics who are upheld the most are insiders. And because that's the case, you need voices on the outside willing to ask what the insiders have stopped noticing so that we can expand our view of what it is that we are seeing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I want to take it back to the source of where this discourse started. Okay. So this was and when we do this show, I think sometimes something Jake and I have talked about in like preparing for episodes like this and stuff like that is we of course never want to direct like harassment at anyone. I think our audience is chill and cool and understands that like this is a piece of writing and we're not critiquing the person who wrote this. We're critiquing the writing that is here, right? So a lot of the times like we tend to not like cite who tweeted something if it's a particularly maybe silly tweet or anything like a Blue Sky post, but it was Skeet rather. Just for the sake of like we're not trying to make anyone feel bad, right? But when it comes to like examining this one specific review, we have to cite it, you know? So I just want to get that like right out the front. Like I hope, you know, if the person who even wrote this review watches this, I don't know if this is on their radar or not, but like if they do, I hope they understand that this is not an attack on them. This is just taking a look at their writing and discussing the context surrounding it. But so this is Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment review, the button mashing of Zelda. This is published to Game Central, which is the gaming vertical of Metro.
It's a good subtitle, the button mashing of Zelda. Actually, that's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And so they gave it a 2 out of 5 or a 4 out of 10, however you prefer. It's listed as both on here. And so the paragraph here, the third paragraph is, or excuse me, the second paragraph here is the thing that drew the most ire on social media. I'm going to read it to you here. It says, Dynasty Warriors will be 30 years old in 2027, and we can't think of any franchise less deserving of having lasted that long. We don't want to put developers out of work, and clearly someone must like them. But despite innumerable sequels, spin-offs, and crossovers, the games have barely seen any evolution in gameplay in all that time, which is a real problem when the core concept is so simplistic and repetitive.
Peter, before you say anything else, yes. I want to call attention to something that we are doing right here that I think is worth calling attention to.
Sure.
So you're doing a forensic reading of what's happening in this text, and a lot of the discourse surrounding what you just read was about the positioning, which is a different conversation. And I actually think that the issue that we have is the same in both of these situations.
Yes.
And because what we are about to do right now is stay as close to the text, what you read, as possible, and use that for framing our reactions, not simply saying, okay, so the problem here is that this author doesn't like these games. Now we're talking about that.
Because that was so much of the conversation online. And like, as we said at the top of this episode, I think that's a boring and frankly, like dumb conversation to have.
Agreed.
Where it's like, it's like, well, you shouldn't be reviewing this game if you don't like this series. I think that's a really, really foolish perspective to have. And I think that's that perspective is a main source of, I think, what is a problem with games media, and it is the homogenization of perspective and appreciation of games, right? If you don't like this series, I want you to review this game because I'm curious how this game feels for you. It's a new one. You know what I mean? Maybe it wins you over. Maybe it's different, or maybe you still hate it. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
But you have to review the game. And if we're going to talk about if we're going to talk about why we are experiencing friction with this review, we have to talk about the review, not the position. We have to talk about the review. So to kind of jump right in and do this forensic reading. Dynasty Warriors will be 30 years old in 2027. So we are starting this review by signaling franchise history and assigning a value judgment to that before describing any present textual elements from this game. Okay. I think the other thing that this paragraph is doing is we can't think of any franchise less deserving of having lasted that long. Less deserving is, rhetorically, we would say that is moralizing gatekeeping. Because that line that's like we don't want to put the developers out of work or whatever, there's a degree to which that is like a rhetorical moral cover for a status judgment rather than a criticism of craft. Yeah. And I think what's happening there is that judgments of deserving, that word deserving, that comes back to what I was saying earlier about cultural capital. It's about mapping that rather than paying any attention to what's happening in the text.
Yes. And so I think like this review sort of goes on and continues to talk about the position of these Muso games. Is that the word for them? Muso?
Yeah.
Is that referring to all of like this entire series, like the Dynasty Warrior stuff? Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not super familiar with these. I've played one. I played the Persona one.
Well, no, please continue. I'm sorry.
So that just means that, like, my perspective, my knowledge of like how to refer to this sort of style of game is maybe just not totally there. But a lot of this review starts off by, and a lot of this review in general just like focuses on the position of this game specifically, whether it is in the Dynasty Warriors like franchise, whether it is in the Legend of Zelda franchise. It's really, really concerned with that. But a lot of the review, it just kind of like misses the mark in terms of like explaining why they didn't like this game. It's very clear that they didn't like it. And I think like they do raise examples saying, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. And that's all well and good. But I think it does not hit on the point that I think reviews should do, where it says like, so why? You know, I don't think it's good at articulating it. Yeah.
Because even saying that you don't like something is not a review, which is, I think, at the top of this, why I said I think we need to be more clear about what the job of a review is. And I think that the word interrogate is so important here. Because I don't know, could this author not have achieved the exact same thing that this opening is achieving by just saying, Peter, in Age of Imprisonment, combat is reduced to a set of low variance inputs that flatten the player choice and experience.
Right. Like, sure.
Great. I am talking about the video game.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what is really invoked about this like positioning other than it really feels like it feels like this kind of review before play. It feels like a review or a part of a review that could have been written before ever interacting with the game that we are actually reviewing.
Yeah, because it's this thing where a lot of this review, and I would also like to say too, again, when we talk about this review, we are also speaking like, yes, we were talking about this specific bit of writing, but also a lot of these frustrations pop up in so much of games writing and so many game reviews. This is just the example of the week that we're sort of taking a look at here.
We would not be talking about this if it was an isolated incident. And
Correct.
I think that a lot of the kind of core underlying ideological reviews that this piece represents are quite prevalent in video game writing. And I think that a lot of people might be listening to this thinking to themselves that they don't commit these sins. And I think it might be worth interrogating that.
I think
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
100%. Like, and again, I feel like we have to cuff it just a little bit because I just want to point out, like, this is not an attack. This is like 100% like educational. Like we're looking at this as a way of understanding this type of writing.
Yeah.
But so a lot of this is written of like, oh, this is boring. And I think that to what you're saying about it could be written before you actually interact with the game, I think the only difference there is if you reviewed a trailer for this game, let's say, you would just say, this author might write, this looks boring, right? And there is an actual analysis going on of what is actually causing it to be boring. They do some. It's not entirely devoid of that, right? Like they write about how the actual what you're doing in the game is repetitive, and then a lot of the enemy types are pretty repetitive as well. But I just don't think it goes particularly deep in terms of explaining like how these sorts of different elements just don't add up to being something that is interesting to this reviewer. It's just so, in my opinion, so surface level in terms of what it's actually bringing to the table, to the point where what you said, like it almost feels like, I'm not saying they didn't play it. I do think they played it, but I'm saying it is written as if you don't need to have played it to understand this perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there could be some misunderstandings in terms of what we are asking to be achieved here. I kind of want to jump to that next paragraph.
Yeah, please.
The crossover games, such as Persona 5 Strikers, do tend to be the best ones, but none of them are actively good. They're popular in Japan, though, and for whatever reason, Nintendo has teamed up with developer Koei Tecmo, excuse me, for not just Zelda spin-offs, but Fire Emblem as well. And the reason I want to call attention to this here is that, can you bring in other games when you are reviewing a game? I'm talking about staying close to the text. I'm talking about reviewing the game we are talking about. Of course you can. If you are trying to uplift something you are saying about this game, and a comparative example, comparative writing in any, media criticism is a very basic thing. It has its purpose, but I don't think that's what this paragraph is achieving. I think there is, again, a lack of interrogation. There is a name checking as an argument here. Persona 5 Strikers. Why is it better? Why is it better? We just say that it's better.
Yeah.
None of them are actively good.
And what do you mean by that specifically, right? Like, to what you're saying, right? Like, okay, you are going to compare, right? The tie-in, the crossover spinoffs, right? Of the Zelda ones, the Fire Emblem ones, the Persona ones, great. You think they're better than the mainline ones, but why? And what makes them better, but also not good? Like, what is that nuance there? And also, why even, in my opinion, I don't think this serves anything in the review.
Persona type matchup mechanics emphasize control in a way that creates a tactical rhythm. Here's how that differs from the new iteration in Hyrule Warriors. Okay, like you can pull off the text if you are staying close to a text.
Yeah.
It's very weird that there is this almost a crime of paraphrasing happening throughout this entire thing that requires no attention to structure or effect.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I don't think that bringing these things up is worthless. Right. In terms of comparison and whatever, I don't think it's worthless, but I do think the way it is being Jake Steinberg were deployed here. I just don't think it is doing much to service talking about this specific game. I think you can talk about these games in conversation with one another, and I think that's perfectly fine and good to do, but they have to be in conversation with one another, which here they're not. It's just like you said, it's a name check. It's just like, I guess I got to mention this, which I also think like, here's a question that I want to throw at you. So if you are writing about a series that you don't like, this guy or gal or whoever wrote this person, because it is left anonymous here, does not fuck with Dynasty Warriors type games at all. My question for you is, do you mention that in the review? And then also, how are you going to mention that in the review? If you do.
I think there are artful ways to mention it, and then I think there are ways that are maybe lacking in meaning to mention it. Yeah. Because the fact of the matter is that I think the way that people interpret I am a fan of this franchise, I am not a fan of this franchise, is that they are thinking about that as a bias. And one sees not being a fan of a franchise as a bias, whereas one sees being a fan of the franchise as like seeing clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is that we all have biases through our experiences of living as human beings. And whether or not you like something or have a taste for something is actually not a bias. It's just your perspective. And to pretend that we all don't have I'm just not interested in like this pretend game that the thing that is going to affect my experience most of this product is whether or not I have described myself as a fan of it in the past. To me, that is boring context. And I am, again, more interested in the experience that you have when you sit down to play the game. And if you sit down to play the game and you are thinking to yourself, there is no way that this is going to be good, you can tell me an interesting story about that. That is a great story to tell.
Yeah, because I think it's exactly what you're saying. Like, yeah, you can bring that up. You can use that if you are going to use that perspective in a way that helps us understand your relationship with this game. So, for example, I thought I was going to hate it, and I did. Here's why. Awesome. I thought I was going to hate it, and I loved it. Here's how that happened. Awesome. I thought I was going to hate it. I hated it. With no how come, with no why, with no way to bring it home, I think is thin writing is probably what I would call it.
I don't think that this reviewer learned anything about why they do or don't like these games.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, how are you consuming anything and not learning? Like, that's your job. Like, your job is to learn something.
Yes, because I also think like what this reviewer does not like about the Dynasty Warriors franchise, I think they're able to identify it, right? I think it's they don't like that they are, in their perspective, like these mindless button mashing games where you're just mowing down a bunch of enemies, because where is it that they say like they identify like this is like the point of these games?
Right, yeah.
They say that at some point here, where they're like the main appeal is this. Right. I think they can articulate why they don't like that. But it's frustrating because it's the exact same reason why they didn't like this game. And now that's okay. You're allowed to say, I didn't think I was going to like this because I don't like this one sort of style of game. And I completely proved myself right again here by continuing to not like this. But as you say, it does not feel like they learned anything, or maybe wanted to learn anything, or wanted to prove themselves right in any way that has any sort of reflection on this series, on this specific game, or on gaming in general, right? In a larger, broader context.
Words that appear in this review: boring, repetitive, shallow. I think that there is a kind of consumer that thinks that this is the point of a review. It is to pass judgment on a game in a way that is this essentially good or bad? Boring, repetitive, shallow, we understand these terms to mean bad. And I think that some people, they're clicking on a review and the idea is this game good or bad? And what's important about these words, boring, repetitive, shallow, for me, is that they're not arguments. These are simply conclusions. If I may, this is something I've run into a lot with my writing, because like at this point in my life, I am doing the bulk of my writing is for my YouTube channel. And I think about, I've done a handful of videos talking about how, this blank game feels empty, or like the connection doesn't happen. My video about like Ghost of Yote, right? I can write that I think that Atsu, the main character, is an empty, sort of shallow character. That's my conclusion about it. But the struggle and the difficult part about writing about that is I can't just say that and have it be true. I have to build an argument and I have to say how that's true. And the difficult part about that specifically is writing about a lack of something is difficult, right? Because how do I prove a negative, right? If I'm saying, oh, she's shallow, she doesn't have anything to her, that's what I believe. But how do I show that absence? And I think that's the challenge of writing about this sort of thing, or writing, saying something feels empty or feels shallow or hollow. I don't remember the other words that you had in there. It's difficult because you have to prove that it doesn't exist. And that is where the challenge lies. But I think that
if you are going to write like that, you need to express how you came to those conclusions.
There is this perspective that people come at you with when you talk about Ghost of Yotei the way that you do. And I think this is important.
Yeah.
And I think that perspective is grounded in them trying to project onto you a lack of objectivity. It is, you went into this game wanting the wrong thing, looking to not like it. These are questions of objectivity. And I think what I want to make clear to the audience, and I think I just invented this, and maybe if I'm quoting something that I have long forgotten, apologies, but I think that this is good. I think a lot of people misunderstand objectivity to be concerned with affection, but it is actually most concerned with attention. Whether or not you are willing, whether or not you are able to give attention to all of the elements in what you are consuming versus, maybe somebody who is not objective is not paying attention. And I get the sense that the review that we are talking about is not paying attention. I get the sense that they have come to conclusions and is instead consuming whatever is happening in this game just so that they can come back to the conclusions that they maybe already came to.
Yeah, I think when at the end of the day, when you're writing a review, I do think you should be open-minded and willing to let a game win you over. In the same way that I think you should be open-minded and willing to let a game lose you. Even like if you want to talk about the Ghost of Yotei thing, there were a lot of comments that were like, it feels like you just played this game wanting to not like it. And it's funny because I'm like, that actually could not be further from the truth. I think I mentioned on this podcast or maybe on our bonus podcast, patreon.com/critical error, for our $5 and up members or Critical Error Nation. They get that bonus podcast every single week. But on our bonus podcast, I talked about how Ghost of Yotei was like one of my most anticipated games of the year. I was so excited for it, whatever. And then I started playing it and it like lost me immediately. And I couldn't I had a hard time articulating that disappointment,
For the sake of the listener, I just want to say that isn't 100% true. I remember texting you when you thought that code was going to come in and you were dying for it. You were like, this is going to save my year. Yeah. That's so funny.
And so of course this, a commenter is not going to be able to pick up on that. It's an unimportant point really. Right. But when the perspective of this review comes from someone who says, this is how I felt going into this, it feels to me that based on the actual body, the text of their review, it feels that they were not open to trying to meet the game with where it was at and assess it for what it is. Instead, they wanted it to, again, this is my perspective reading this review. It feels like they were interested in confirming what they already believed, as opposed to letting the game either be good or bad on its own merits.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing, right? Because earlier, I one of the first points I made was kind of about this sense of ownership by the voice of authority and wanting to protect that. So I think a lot of the friction to this review was people who feel a sense of ownership over these kinds of games, or maybe Zelda as a franchise. And now I'm wondering if this person is maybe performing a sense of ownership over not being a fan of these games. And that's the most important thing to them, is to kind of this was an excuse for them to write ultimately what feels like a feature about not liking these games more than it was a review of this particular game. And it's such a shame too, because I think this existing and kind of the discourse that generated around it actually did a disservice to the conversation I think I would be more interested in having, which is this person's perspective, if performed correctly, could make a really fun to read, interesting review. I would love to read a review for one of these games. Because listen, I've played a lot of Muso games. I've played a lot of them. Some of them I really like. Some of them I really don't and think are quite bad. And I hope that I could explain the differences between those and what was working and why and how it affected me and all of these other things. I would love to read a review for one of these games that is finally unafraid and confident to lead with this perspective of, I press A, X. The move comes out again. A horde of faceless enemies that die by the second A are dispatched. It's like you can. That is great. That is a great review. It has to read. And I think the problem with this review is that it doesn't read, dude. The more I look at it, the more I think I feel such a distance between me and the video game that was reviewed. I have seen trailers for this video game, only a couple. I don't feel like I learned anything about the game reading this review.
Right. I think that's
dude.
The main takeaway for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think that I have gleaned a new perspective on this. And now, again, this is not a problem exclusive to this review. I, truth be told, have not read other reviews of this game, but I would put money, Jake, I like to gamble.
Yep.
Here's a poker chip from the Caesars Casino in Windsor, Canada.
Ooh, that's my dog's cousin.
And that chip, yeah, I like it. I like
that's
it.
Poker chip. That's
Poker chip. Yes. I accidentally walked out with this in my pocket. I wish I did not. I wish I had 25 Canadian dollars instead.
Damn.
But what I'm saying is, I think that this is probably a problem that is facing a lot of other reviews as well.
I can tell you that it is
positive and negative. Of just like, I don't think I walked away feeling like I learned anything that I couldn't glean from a trailer.
Dude, I cannot express this concept enough of playing with the text, staying close to the text. When if I teach a class, and I've done this before, I did maybe a month ago, I did a seminar for college students, and we talked about reviewing games. Mm-hmm. And the tip that I gave them, just as like a general thing, I'm like, if you don't know how to start your review, here's a little piece of advice. Obviously, it's the idea is not to do this every single time you review a game, but just to get you started. Write a little story about something that happened in the game. Start in the game.
Sure.
Tell me something, because oftentimes I think people maybe don't realize how talking about a 30-second bit of gameplay can frame the entirety of a review. People sometimes pretend that like games are these behemoths that you have to see everything, you have to know everything, you have to talk about this feature, that feature, every single thing that inhabits the video game. But really, I think you can frame the feeling, the thing that you want to say, so much clearly and easily, and in a way that is entertaining for the audience to understand, that might actually get them to see a game that they have not yet played in a new way, if you simply bring it as close to the text as possible. Make that micro big,
Yeah, and I agree. I think, like, as you said, like, probably they don't make that every single review you write, but like, if you're having a hard time figuring out what is working or what isn't working, write specifically about something that happened in the game and how you felt about it. And that is going to be a great jumping off point for you. And here's the other part too, is sometimes like you can use that and then not keep that in the final thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need that as a way of getting yourself into it, and you go, oh, okay, now I know how to talk about this. Now I know the perspective I'm going to have on this. I also think it's interesting. I think this review is successful at one thing that I tend to recommend for people as they are working on writing things and writing criticism, especially. The problem is the direction it takes is what I would say wrong. But I do think it does get at the first thing that I always say whenever I'm like looking over like someone's writing, and it is say what you want to say and just get there.
Oh, get there, dog.
Start with the perspective.
Yeah.
Start with where you took this. I think it does do that, but it's a shame that the perspective that it's going off is like, I don't like this series, and that's it, right? Like, there's nothing else to it,
man. You know what that really makes me think of too? Such a bummer. I'm sure this will be familiar to you. This idea of like, you already know what this game is, so you know how to feel about it. You know what I mean? You see this a lot, I feel like, with like long running. Are you a fan of these? Mm-hmm. And I feel like the idea that to me is almost like repetition is automatically bad. And I guess I'm just thinking about, I had a theater director, I've probably said this on here before, that said to me, great art holds up to multiple viewings. Mm-hmm. And I really like that, right? And I think that like so many, if I'm thinking about like literary classics, you read them over and over and over again, and you get different things out of them like every time, and people have new reads. And since we are different and our perspectives are different, and the context in which we consume stories is different, the stories, because meaning is created between the text and the reader, it's different. So the idea that these games are the same because of their objective sameness is, to me, a fundamental misunderstanding of like how you interpret art. Yeah. And it's like, we've already studied all the Shakespeare plays. So you already know. No reason to look at these ever again. Like that's so to me, it's almost like anti-art. It's there's almost a point to criticism that is, what does this work do within familiar material? And because so much of what gives stories weight is what you are doing by repeating these ideas that you are already familiar with. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a question for you then.
Okay.
So you have been tasked with reviewing Dynasty Warrior, what's this called? Hyrule Warriors Age of
Imprisonment.
Yeah. You've been tasked with reviewing this game. You hate all Dynasty Warriors games.
Sick. Can't wait to write this review.
You play this game and you really don't like it. And now we haven't played this. I don't even know if it's out yet. I don't think it is at the time we're recording this. But what is your, like, if you had to say, like, what is a go-to angle that you might try to use? What is a way that you would try to frame this that could allow you to write something negative saying, I don't like this series. I don't like this game. What's that angle?
Okay. I have a suspicion that this would work for this game. Obviously, I haven't played it, so this is just where my head goes. I would say the questions I ask myself, what are the characters interested in this story? What are they interested in? What ideas are supposed to resonate between them and me? Okay, great. Now, looking at the fundamental mechanics of the game, the structure of the game, what the game wants me as the player to be interested in, given that it is this genre of game, the blanket word I'm going to use to describe this is excess. There are tons of enemies on the screen. There are tons of different playable characters, tons of different moves I can do. There is a attention to excess in this game. And I wonder if I connect what is supposed to be going on with these characters in their world really close tonally with what is happening kind of in a meta way with me in the video game. Can I talk about that point of connection, or is that a harsh point of dissonance? Is there a miscommunication between what the game is saying and what it is doing, how it is hitting me? And then if I can make that clear, I think I can make this feeling inside of me clear to the audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think I would take it from a, if I'm like trying to adopt the position that this author has, right? About like, I hate this series and I played this game and I didn't like it. What I think I would use, Age of Imprisonment more as a tool to explain what I don't like about this series, right? And what, like, how I have a hard time understanding what people get out of it, right? I talk about like, oh my gosh, it's all of these same enemies and all this. Like, I would use it as a more specific dive into my dissatisfaction with this series, as opposed to like almost as a response to the way that people have responded to these in the past. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like even just the idea of you are having an angle a step further. It's the angle is not the conclusion. And I think that this author's perspective, the angle is the conclusion, which is not an angle.
Right. But I think that is a common theme we see in a lot of games writing is the idea that having a conclusion, because having a conclusion is having an opinion, right? But having an opinion is the first step of writing criticism for me. You need to back it up, right? You need to have the opinion needs to have weight, and you need to have proved why you have come to that opinion about a game based on your writing. And I think this review doesn't do it. I think a lot of reviews don't do it. There was one a few at this point months ago, a particularly bad Metal Gear Solid Delta review that you and I talked about. I don't think we talked about on the podcast. I don't really have much interest in litigating that here because we just don't have it up, whatever. But like, it does a similar thing in the opposite, right? Where it says like, this is good. This is good. This is good. But it's like, but why and how did it get to being good if we don't know? You got something. Something's on your mind.
I don't know if I have the confidence to do what I want to do right now, but I'm going to give it I'm going to give it a shot.
Give it a shot. And then what's wonderful about this is we can edit. We don't like to, but we can.
Allow me to dictate a review for this video game that I have not played right now.
Go ahead.
An hour into playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, there was a moment when hundreds of bokoblins filled my screen. My constructed sword swings in a perfect and unbroken rhythm. The bokoblins fly apart like paper. The camera doesn't shutter, the frame rate does not drop, and the game hums along frictionless. This is when I realize what Age of Imprisonment is. A ritual, not to be confused with a power fantasy. This is a game about automation, about a world that has already decided who its heroes are, content to replay that story over and over again with the same amount of drama as a metronome. Every single button press is predictable. Every combo is visually distinct, but emotionally identical. The repetition is not a flaw. Hold on. But an argument for how Nintendo imagines this franchise. A civilization caught in an eternal loop of sacrifice where every single battle has already been decided. You are not improvising. You are not thinking creatively. You're performing choreography.
There you go. Love it.
No, there you go.
No, it's great. It's great. So yeah, we can publish that. That'll be going up on.
Put that up. Our review for whatever this game was called. All right, Age of Imprisonment.
Can I say it's a bad title? I mean, it is what it is, but it's a bad.
Are we gonna cut that out of the episode, or did that work?
No, it was great. All right,
because
but what I do think that shows is, of course, now you have the perspective of reading reviews.
I was sweating a little there.
No, it was something that was incredible. I would never be able to replicate that or do that myself. No, you did great. But you haven't played the game. You've read some reviews. You've seen the trailers and whatever. But even then, you were able to, at the very least, again, based on an experience that you haven't had, just taking the word of this reviewer, you're able to, at the very least, give this review some kind of body. Give it some kind of real sort of meat on its bones without even having played it after just reading these sorts of things, right? And in the hope then would be that you also in this review get into the specifics of it and get into the real, the actual text of the game there. But it's possible. It's possible.
Peter, I think the real meta now is that these websites have to just start hiring me to write their reviews for like a whole year of games. You know what I mean? Just give me 12 games and I'll get them to you on January 15th, and then you just post those puppies whenever you want.
Yeah.
I should do one. This actually would be funny. I think, has anybody ever written a review for a game that doesn't exist?
I guess not.
You know what I'm saying? It's here's my review for Super Mario Galaxy 3. Just publish that one day.
God, that's fun. That's actually a great idea.
Fun. Somebody should do that. That'd be so good. Could you imagine that pops up on IGN? Our review for Super Mario Galaxy 3 is live. That so actually confusing. Is sick. Yeah, no, that'd be so fun. Yeah. Oh, damn. All right. Cool.
So if I may, one more thing here, because I was then looking at the takeaways, like the short blurb at the box at the bottom. You know what I mean? In short, where they call they say the Star Fox sections are mildly interesting, and that's there's like a bit where you do on rail shooting stuff. Great.
Ooh.
But I was curious about so that's what it says in the shorter version of this, right? In the condensed, here's the TLDR, didn't read it, bite-sized version of this review, just says the Star Fox sections are mildly interesting. So I was curious. So I went up and I said, well, what does this review then have to say in a longer version of these Star Fox sections if the condensed version is that they are just mildly enjoyable or mildly interesting rather? It is in one paragraph. I'm going to read it to you in its entirety.
Oh, exciting. Okay.
The only thing breaking up the ground battles are brief Star Fox style sequences where you take control of the not link construct, which can transform into a jet. These on the rails sections are mildly enjoyable, but like the rest of the games, they're trivially easy and rely too much on repeating ideas from Tears of the Kingdom. Despite being set thousands of years in the past, most of Hyrule still looks more or less the same. That's it.
Okay.
And what I find to be interesting about this is, similar to the way that the beginning of this review starts with talking about, the spin-offs, the Hyrule ones, the Fire Emblem, the Persona ones aren't as bad, but they're still not good. The way it does not qualify that in any way. This does the same thing. Mildly enjoyable, but like the rest of the game, they're trivially easy and rely too much on repeating ideas. So what makes them mildly enjoyable, right, in a way that the rest of the game is not? And then when we get to the bite-sized version of it, the bite-sized version of it is actually the entire opinion, the entire analysis is just, it's okay. It's all right. That's it,
This allows for the one saving grace of the game: split screen and online co-op. It is completely unnecessary because the game's already so easy, but if you are going to endure the tedium of playing the game, it's best to do so with a friend. Can I just point something out that's kind of funny about this?
Sure.
Split screen and online co-op. What does that mean to you?
What do you mean? What does that mean to me?
What does that mean to you? You just read that in this review. What does this game have?
What do you mean co-op? Co-op.
Yeah. So you can play split screen?
Yeah, you can sit down with someone on the couch, or you can just play online with someone else.
Right. Okay, what if I told you there is no online co-op? It's game share, so it's split screen even when you are playing online.
Oh, really?
The game does not support online multiplayer. It is simply that Switch 2 functionality allows you to have like a local person with you online. Yeah, so there is no weird. Isn't that funny?
That is funny. That's
just a wrinkle, just a little wrinkle I wanted to throw into the mix here. So even in terms of like this kind of functionality of a review, I'm like, so
yes. It's interesting. I don't think this is a particularly great review, but I think that the reason it's not great is not the reason why everyone online was talking about it being not great, right?
And that's really the heart of what we're trying to get across here too.
Yes. Yeah. And also, that's not to say that there aren't parts of this that could be enhanced if this author dug a little bit deeper. And I think ultimately that's the message of what we're trying to say is there is a perspective here that is worth sharing. I think this review did not figure out how to get that perspective across.
Any argument that centers around a person that like can or can't review a game or should or shouldn't review a game, I find that to kind of be a weak argument from the onset. I don't know if I'm interested in hearing arguments like that.
I just think it's in the same way of like who can and cannot make art or like sing or like anyone. Anyone can.
Yeah. And it feels like such a gamery thing. I said this online, but I think it's worth repeating. But like this almost like only this kind of person should review a game, I find to be conservative logic inherently, because what it's doing is upholding the status quo over who can and can't review games. And like, why is that really our prerogative at this particular point in games media, is to make sure that the only people reviewing games are, you know what I'm saying?
So then you just shut out any additional perspectives.
People just want every review to read the same. And sometimes I wonder if that is the goal for a lot of people. It's like the more reviews that congeal onto the same score means that they are honest, Yeah, bad.
I'm like hoping, and I don't know what it would take for this to happen, but I'm hoping at some point like the review sort of system that we have in place will break, and then we will be able to get like varying perspectives from other people.
There's a curiosity that I think is lacking in the review that we read from, and I think that lack of curiosity, as we've said earlier, is more prevalent across the wider space than anybody really wants to acknowledge. And curiosity makes you a more well-rounded person, and also it makes you a better critic. And
It does.
if you're not investigating and interrogating the work in front of you, and you are instead listing out all of the different kinds of side missions, the things that made the game different from what it was before, I am going to wonder if your review could have been written before you even played the game. And I don't say that to be like, oh, game reviewers are being dishonest and they're getting ahead of their work. I say that to mean that what the work is doing is not a review.
Yeah.
So that's it. Cool.
Jake, before we move on to our final section here, I would like to tell our listeners about the Critical Error Nation.
Cool.
If you head over to patreon.com/critical error, you'll find that there's a cornucopia of additional bonus content that we've created for someone like you.
What did we talk about today? What did we talk about on the bonus episode?
Oh, all
today?
sorts of stuff. We talked about Simpsons Fortnite.
Yeah.
We talked about, we did a review. We looked at the games that people commented on our last video, which were like the 10 games to get to know you. You know, we talked about some of those games. I feel like there was something else that we talked about.
I got
Marvel Rivals.
I started cutting it up about Pokemon Legends ZA a little bit. We've got that. As when people are listening to this episode, there will be a trailer for the DLC that I'm excited for.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're interested in hearing that, we are a little bit more buttoned up in our like main episodes. Then the tie comes off a little bit in the bonus episode. So if you're interested in hearing more from us, patreon.com/critical error. By becoming a $5 a month donor, you get all of that bonus content. But there are 2 tiers above that. We have the Critical Error Royalty, the $10 tier, and the Jake and Peter tier for $20, currently held exclusively by one Evan Ponce. Evan, thank you so much for making this show possible. And to the members of our Critical Error Royalty, that's Connor Truelove, Andrew Bolcar, Danny Disaster, Sam Cedar, Jacob Richter, Jared Cusino. Richter, I'm sorry.
Come
sorry,
on.
I can't read.
You know Castlevania?
I've never played it.
All right.
I just know the song. That's
pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm sorry.
Music.
I got on you in the middle of the names.
All good. Jared Cusino and Captain Woodsy. Thank you. Jake, I believe you have a sound prepared for them.
I do. And I'm gonna try to nail. On the last podcast, we got a comment, and I saw it, and I tried. And I think I know it. And I don't know if I agree with you. So in this sound, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear a slightly different pronunciation because I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Here we go.
Choose your character.
Evan Ponce, Connor Truelove, Andrew Bolcar, Danny Disaster, Sam Cedar, Jacob Richter, Jared Cusino, Captain Woodsy.
And hey, Jared, let us know if that pronunciation is right. please. I want to say your name right. I want to say your name right.
Week. It's so hard to do pronunciations over textual correspondence, but
it is. But and anyone else, if I'm sorry, Jacob Richter as well. Maybe it is Richter.
Yeah,
Jake,
maybe I'm wrong. You're right. Yeah. I don't know.
Let us know in the comments. Jake, I believe you have something prepared written for us.
I've prepared a piece for this week called Street Fighter Girls 2.
The squeakle.
That's right. Here we go. Let me just dive right in.
Yeah.
Summer lies sideways across my bed, propped on one elbow, her hair still damp from a shower she took hours ago. She is wearing one of my shirts. The soft gray one she found under the desk and decided belonged to her. The TV sits on a low dresser at the foot of the bed. It hums quietly, the kind of sound you only notice when someone else is in the room with you. The controller cable snakes across my comforter, warm from her thigh and into my hands. Street Fighter 2 loads in. Strips of blue and orange spill across us like a sunset through blinds. She is singing something next to me, a phrase she keeps circling back to. It sounds like the start of a song or maybe the middle of one. I've been trying to piece it together in my head for weeks. When she finally records it or plays it for someone who isn't me, I will recognize the bones of it immediately, and it will still feel like something that I always had first. The words from her come half whispered. I know who you think of most. Sometimes she changes the rhythm, sometimes the tone, like she is testing something about the line and waiting for it to break. Nodding at the screen, you always pick him, she says. Ryu, I tell her. Do you ever get bored of him? I like his spacing. That's such a you answer, she says. What does that mean? You just don't want to get hit? On screen, Guile throws a sonic boom. I block it clean. I know it by heart, the safe distance between my sweep and his kick. I punish the whiff, the sound effect brittle and perfect in the speakers. It is probably the first time all week that I have done something exactly right. Summer adjusts, folding one leg over the other, her heel nudging against my hip. I can feel the warmth of her skin through the blanket. She tilts her head and watches my hands instead of the screen. You make it look so easy, she says, like she is complimenting a magic trick that she doesn't even believe in. It's really just timing, I tell her. She hums again, and then that same phrase, I know who you'd think of most, except now it's slower. The vowels have been pulled long. It doesn't sound like an accusation yet, but it will later. We have been together for almost a year, the kind of year that feels really full, even though nothing has happened. That same diner, the same parking lot, the same drives home, the same Magen David glinting against her collarbone, making me, I am leaving for college in a few weeks. She is not. She says that she's going to visit, that her band is trying to record this fall, and that her parents can't afford tuition this year anyway. It's just logistics, she says, but her voice always betrays her. I lose the round. She leans in closer. I think you jumped too soon, she says. I know. You always say that too. When I finally win, she scoots forward until her knees touch my back. Her hair brushes the top of my neck. She is close enough that I can smell her shampoo, some coconut thing she buys from the grocery store down the street. Her breath lifts the small hairs near my ear. She doesn't say a thing, just reaches over and takes the controller from my hands. Her thumb grazes the buttons. The static of her skin on mine makes the plastic warm. How do you do the fireball again? She asks. I tell her the motion, down, diagonal, forward, punch. And she tries it, rolling her wrist like she's tracing a half circle in the air. Nothing happens. So she tries again and again. The movement is always too sharp and fast. But finally, the screen flashes blue. A fireball shoots across the stage and hits Dalsim right in the chest. Holy shit, she says, shoulders dropping like something in her finally let go. The controller falls to the blanket. It thuds softly. She leans back against the headboard, knees pulled up, and stares at the ceiling like she's waiting for something to appear there. I don't know what to say. I want to tell her that I am scared to leave, that every part of me feels smaller lately, that I have been rehearsing goodbyes in my head, but none of them sound right, and instead I don't say anything. The match keeps playing. Dalsim destroys her while she is choosing to pay attention to the ceiling. She tilts her head toward me. Do you think we'll still talk after you go? Of course, I say. She nods once, eyes still on the ceiling. You're getting better at saying what people want to hear. I think I'm getting really good at the spacing. So I'm going to stop there. This is a much longer story.
I hate you.
And
I hate
this
you.
is a much longer story, and I
know.
realized that I had written far too much. So I will be publishing this this piece in its entirety on my website in the future. But I thought that was a good stopping point for the beginning of the story. Yes.
Gosh, dude. So when you texted me, when you were like, "Hey, I'm still writing this," I'm trying to figure out what to do about like it's too long.
Yeah.
And then you were like, I'm just gonna like call it. And then is it going up on your Substack, or are you pitching it somewhere else? Or
jakesteinberg.substack.com.
Awesome. Let's get you more of those subscribers.
Yeah, free subscribers
Yeah.
on Substack. Yeah, just put your email in. You get my pizzas directly to your inbox. It's quite nice.
I was gonna say, it's an easy way to keep up with you for free.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. I knew when you said that you were gonna like cut it off at a certain point that it was going to be in the most painful spot imaginable. Because I know you and your bullshit. So congrats on doing that again. Wow. Yeah. This is phenomenal. I think about something I'm fascinated by is the expression of like mundanity. And obviously like this conversation is not mundane at the end here, but there is like, obviously I don't have I've not read the full thing, but this is probably not the only, and I also assume, is this like autobiographical or
I normally don't. I normally don't say this, but whereas the first Street Fighter Girls was very imagined, this one is not.
Gotcha. So, okay. But I imagine that this was not the only conversation you had about this sort of topic. As like I think about like being a senior in high school or like getting ready to move to school, whatever. These sorts of conversations happen, right? Like multiple times. It's not just once. But it's the idea of like writing about mundanity, about like you mentioned, like there are all these other instances, you know what I mean, over that summer, and you could have written about any one of those. But it's about this one specifically, and how does this moment of mundanity relate to the rest of it? And I love the framing you've got, and damn, that's really sweet and really nice.
This is I had the feeling that I always chase whenever I'm writing fiction with this story, where it grabbed hold of me a little, and I I'm there. I'm in that scene. I know what's important to me. I know what's important to her. I get how there's this terrible, terrible thing is like looming off in the distance for both of them. And I don't know, something that was important to me about this was when I sat down to, I've said before that I wanted to write this series about the Street Fighter games and love, and how you can use this particular franchise to kind of talk about love in a way that I think is interesting. And my initial impetus for writing this piece was Street Fighter 2 is the one that you hold against every other one. Yeah. It is the one that you remember. It is the one that
I see what you're saying. It
is totemic. It is Street Fighter Girls, the first one, that was about my kind of like first engagement in these kinds of feelings, but I was acting clumsily in a world that I didn't understand. Street Fighter 2, the main character, is quite good at playing the game, actually. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I think I know. I've picked my main at this point, actually. I have a character that I like. I think I know myself, and I think I know what I like. And that's what I think I really like about this particular framing here is I think everybody can recognize that I'm doing a level of double writing. I think there is a degree of double writing that I'm doing in this that is so much more permeated in the piece that so it's fun.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I think I don't have like much of the context or the background for like Street Fighter just because it's not a game that I'm super familiar with. I do know that about it though. I think gosh, I'm excited to read would you say other half of this, or how much of this more is
maybe more than half, maybe a little bit more than half. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Well, whatever is the second bit of this, I'm excited to dive into, because I think like I think one of the things that you really, really excel at as well in like your fiction writing, or even like obviously this is not fiction, but in that same style, right?
Auto fiction is what they would say, I think. Got it.
You, I think, do a really good job at like establishing a sense of place.
Oh, thank you.
And
that's
like
really kind.
You don't need to hit every single detail about what this room is like, but you hit just enough where I'm like, no, I get it. No, I know what this looks like. I know what this feels like. I think about it too, like you did that really well in like Rewind as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Damn. Wow. That was delightful.
Wow. I love when you hit me with a compliment for something I'm self-conscious about.
Oh, really? You're self-conscious about that?
About place. Dude,
it's so clear.
As a reader, something that I kind of reject when I'm reading are really ornate, descriptive.
I
don't do well with that. I find it to be sometimes like lacking in perspective. It feels like So there's something about that I've always kind of like had issues with in a lot of like literary fiction. So for me, environments are always like, if it's not important to my character, you are not hearing about
so
it.
that's what I think is important, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, when you read something, you're envisioning it abstractly in your head, right? And so like sometimes you need that, right? Like you're describing like a really ornate building or room that is important, what it looks like, or if characters going to be revisiting it a lot, like I do think it is important. But for something like this, doesn't matter. What matters is the vibe of that room. So I don't need to hear about the ceiling fan. I don't need to hear about, you know what I mean? Like the carpet, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't remember all the things you mentioned. So if those were two of the things, I apologize.
No,
but
that was
like,
good.
you know what I mean? Like those things don't matter. What does matter is like, you're like, oh, she's wearing the shirt or the sweater or whatever it was that was under my desk, under the chair or whatever. Like perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Because that tells you it was under the desk. That tells you something about what the rest of this room looks like. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
It's
so
good.
fun.
It was
Yeah,
great.
cool.
It was great.
Well, I hope the listeners enjoyed it. And otherwise, anything else we got to leave them off with before we wrap up here?
Like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments who should review a game. I don't know. It was nothing. Do you
think we're getting 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year?
Now what a wonderful wedding gift that would be for me if on December 31st, on December 31st, the day of 2025, the day of my marriage, if we tip over from 999 to 1000.
I would love to see it. Get us there. Yeah, we'll catch you next week.